Welcome to A Place for Film, the I Used to Know podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking about the fall 2013 City Lights series. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Jason Thompson.
And on this week's episode, we're talking about the City Lights series, Jason. I think this is probably the episode we've done the most.
I think so.
Because the very first semester, we had James Posca on to talk about City Lights, and that's the only one of those we did that semester. So I think City Lights is our most covered series.
That works.
All right. So we've got some of the old crew. Well, it was the same crew, but we didn't have one of you on last semester. So we've got Noelle Griffis. We've got Jason Qualls,
Sorry,
good, and Danny Grinberg here.
That's right. Hey.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're really excited to have all three of you on this time. In the past, it was James and Landon, and that was easy because we could always fit two. And we sort of rearranged everything so we can fit more on, and I think it's going to be worth it. All right. Well, let's talk about the City Lights series. Another really nice set of films this semester, guys. And we're going to miss one. One is happening, as I'm editing this. King Kong, the original King Kong. But let's go ahead and talk about it because it's there.
All right. So this is one that I selected. I figured if you're going to start your series, you got to start big. Last semester, I chose kind of an obscure French film. A pretty big Kurosawa film, but Japanese as well. So this time I was like, let's just get to the heart of American cinema. And if you're going to do that, you got to start with, well, you don't have to start with, but King Kong is kind of the elephant in the room, if you will.
The current set of American films, yes, you have to start with King Kong because that is the first special effects blockbuster ever.
So yeah, we thought we would go really big with this season, and it's actually a film I've never seen on the big screen, so I personally wanted to see it, not 90 feet like King Kong, but, up in your face. And I think a lot of people would either love to see it on the big screen again or for the first time. So we're hoping for a really big crowd, and I think the people will come out for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed, I was looking at the program book earlier today just to kind of get familiar with the series again, and I noticed that it's 100 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I was like, a movie in 1933 that's 100 minutes long. I'm sure people back then were just like blown away by it.
Right.
But I'm just like, I just forget that there's so much stuff in King Kong because, you got the beginning, you kind of got the discovery of Kong, and then, of course, New York City. But there's so much stuff crammed in the middle.
He fights dinosaurs.
Right, I know. And it's just like...
How long's the remake?
Like 3 hours?
It's
3 hours
loaded.
long.
Yeah. Because I was doing a little research on Wikipedia, and of course I ran into the Peter Jackson remake, and because I was trying to see if the original King Kong had a intermission. I know there's like that sort of fake sort of prelude.
There's like it's almost like two movies stitched together. You can almost cut it in half, and then like next week see what happens to King Kong.
That's kind of what I was looking for. Like, is there going to be an intermission? And then, of course, I got all these articles about the Peter Jackson movie needing an intermission, and I was just like, no, that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I'll definitely be showing up for that one because, like you, I've never seen it on the big screen, so.
This is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Wow.
Okay. And I got something scheduled over the top of it, so I can't go. So I'm very unhappy about that.
I'll tape it for you.
Yes, it's a good idea. Good idea. Tape it on the big screen for me, and I'll claim it's the same experience.
John will have no problem with that.
Do you want to share what the other movies in the top 5 are?
Yeah, I can. I've done it before. Seven Samurai, Third Man, The Thing, which is also playing this semester. Seven Samurai's played previous semesters. We did The Third Man. One of you.
City Lights did
a Third Man.
Year,
Moulin Rouge, the Baz Luhrmann, and King Kong would be on there. Sometimes I throw in Almost Famous.
Huh.
But yeah.
It's an eclectic list.
Yes, it is. It is. Yes. So, all right. So let's talk about the City Lights series in general. How did you guys get this gig? How long has it been around? Give me the whole story.
Well, actually, I'm not entirely sure when it first started because it started. They were showing films, I think here,
at RTV.
The RTV for a while, and then of course it became a cinema series, the IU Cinema, once that opened up. With James and Landon doing it for a couple years, I think, and then now we're doing it. So it's the Department of Communication and Culture graduate students that program it. So I guess we just pass it down to one another, and
Yeah.
eventually we'll pass it down to someone else who speaks up,
Yeah, I mean,
or who we select.
The program has changed quite a bit since the opening of the cinema. I mean, when we used to do it here, I mean, we used to be totally restricted to whatever prints were available in the David Bradley collection. And so we couldn't, like now we have other sort of options. Like say the collection has a film, but it's they've frozen it to preserve it, so they can't, or it just is too tattered to play. John Vickers can find another copy of it, just as long as the title is in the collection.
Yeah, so they're all selected from the David Bradley collection here at the Lilly Library.
We should talk a little bit more about David Bradley, because we haven't talked about that in a while. So tell me about the David Bradley collection.
Oh, right.
Well, I can tell you to start out that there are over 3,000 titles.
Yes.
And it's housed in the Lilly Library. And you can actually go on to, I think it's IUCAT, and search and find all of the titles that are available.
And it's a fun way to kill an afternoon, just
you play the
trying to
game.
stump the David Bradley collection. It's not easy.
Yeah,
Anything
there's a lot in
before
there.
like 1980, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to find something that's not in the David Bradley collection. But David Bradley was a film collector, and he sort of he was a filmmaker for a while, but he worked with Charlton Heston for a while, and he was in Chicago. Then he moved to L.A., and he was just a film collector. He was basically me before DVDs. If I hadn't been able to collect DVDs, I might have collected 16-millimeter film prints. But he just had thousands and thousands of these, and it sort of went over a process where he was sort of deciding who to give it to, and ended up IU got that collection, and we've been working with it ever since.
Yeah. I know that he's friends with Christopher Walken because we've watched some of his home movies on Home Movie Day before.
Yes, that's the other thing. He had these New Year's parties where he would invite all these Hollywood celebrities, and they would all show up because he was that guy. And lots of home movies in the collection as well of him filming these parties. And it feels weird watching what is clearly a VHS home movie shot like the kind of thing you would shoot in your backyard at your aunt's house on like somebody's confirmation, and then it's like Christopher Walken's there. That is a bizarre experience. Okay, so let's get into the rest of these films here. So the next one up is Saturday, September 21st, and that is The Hustler, which I've never seen before. I'm really excited to see it.
Yes.
In fact, have I ever seen any of these? I think I've seen Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3, but I haven't seen the others.
Wow.
So
I have seen all of them.
Jason.
So I make up for everything.
Yes. So tell me about The Hustler.
So directed by Robert Rosen, 1961. And I mean, the main thing people need to know is Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's this is, Paul Newman at his finest, I think. I mean, several could fit into this Paul Newman at his finest, but this is definitely his role is Fast Eddie. So he's a pool-playing hustler who's he's got the skills, but, maybe not the mentality. He's a little quick on the gun. He's so to speak, and he's just a little bit of a wild card. So he's got to sort of reel in his talent. But he's a mess, and he meets another mess played by Piper Laurie, Sarah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the mother from Carrie. Yeah.
Nice.
And she's younger than his love interest, but she's got a big problem with the bottle. He's got a big problem with his hustling and gambling and being out of control. So together they're, spiraling out of control, and I guess what we call now a codependent.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's shot in Greenwich Village. So it's another great. We have a lot of sort of New York films on here as well. So this is definitely one of them. Although they travel around, and he challenges
Minnesota Fats.
Minnesota Fats.
Yeah.
I was getting fast at it. Yeah, played by Jackie Gleason, which is just such a great scene. But yeah, it's just a phenomenal film.
Cool. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing it because again, it's one of those that just that space in my experience. So the next one here, Saturday, October 5th. This one would have fit in very nicely at Slapstick-Con a few months ago, but it probably a little too famous to have been played at Slapstick-Con. Harold Lloyd film, probably his most famous, Safety Last.
Yep.
Tell me all
This is
about it.
another one that I
Little
chose.
Danny pick.
Another one that I love. I'm obsessed with. I think it's probably right up there with City Lights. Charlie Chaplin's City Lights is maybe the funniest, if not silent funniest film of all time. But it's amazing. It's Harold Lloyd at his best, his most iconic role playing Harold Lloyd, where he is a hapless worker trying to raise enough money to marry his girlfriend. And he gets roped into climbing a building. And just the physical comedy is, it sets the bar for the next, this is going to be the 90th anniversary. So the next 90 years of cinema, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the film where you've seen clips from this before where he like grabs onto a clock hand and the clock whole face like pulls out and he like
I'm not
almost
going to
falls down.
spoil the film, so I can't confirm or deny that happens. But yes, that very iconic scene may or may not be in this film. Yes.
Excellent. So that's Saturday, October 5th at 3 p.m. And you guys, the next one is your Halloween film. The tradition in the City Lights series is to celebrate the high holidays of the college calendar, and Halloween is definitely one of them. The other one is Valentine's Day, but we're not having Valentine's Day. This is the Halloween film. Next semester will be the Valentine's Day film. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Tell me all about it.
Okay, it's a 1962 film directed by Robert Aldrich. It stars Betty Davis and Joan Crawford sort of at the very end of their, well, at the end of Joan Crawford's career. Betty Davis went on for a few more decades.
Yeah.
But this was her first really big, high-profile Hollywood role. It was her, last. It was her Betty Davis's last Oscar nomination. And they play these two sisters living in this old mansion. Joan Crawford's in a wheelchair, and Betty Davis is her sort of deranged sister. They're both former actresses from old 30s Hollywood. And so they, they have people coming to their house a lot trying to sort of visit the Joan Crawford character, who was much more famous and glamorous. The Betty Davis character was a sort of fading vaudeville star, whereas the Joan Crawford character was a sort of fading Hollywood star. But she has mysteriously ended up in this wheelchair. We don't really know how she ended up in the wheelchair. We don't know. We know it has something to do with her sister, with Betty Davis's character. But at the beginning of the film, the local TV station does like a sort of revival of all of the Joan Crawford character's old films, and so she has this new surge of popularity, which just incenses Betty Davis's deranged character. So Betty Davis's character decides to revive her old vaudeville act, and then also slowly kill her sister.
Wow!
And it's this it's a romp. It's so funny, but it's also just this really well crafted, very nervy thriller, because from the beginning that Betty Davis is just trying to kill Joan Crawford, and I sort of slip back and forth between the characters' names and the actresses' names.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like
it's rather interesting to see how close to the actual actresses are these profiles. It's interesting because, like you said, they're sort of at the end of certain parts of their lives, and it is kind of weird.
Absolutely, and even in the film, you get a lot of footage from each of those actresses' career. Like you get old. Screen test reels and stuff like that when it's showing when it's showing a scene from one of the films that they had been in the 30s. It's actually using stuff from earlier in these women's careers. But you hear there's a lot of lore about what went on the set. Joan Crawford was at the time married to the CEO of Pepsi Cola, and apparently Betty Davis had a bunch of Coke machines installed on the set, And then there was supposedly there's a scene where, not to give too much away, but where Betty Davis has to drag her crippled sister across the room. And Joan Crawford put rocks in her dress so she'd be heavier. And these are the sort of stories that but I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful film. So much fun. What they call a camp classic. It plays in a lot of midnight circuits. A lot of drag queen impersonations are directly based on this film. And it's just a really good time. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I always like to ask the programmers. I'm not really sensing a theme here, but did you guys have any ground rules sort of going into your programming of this series? Any sort of basic ideas of like we want this sort of mix of films?
Right. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because you asked us the same thing last semester, and we
Yeah.
were really struggling to find a theme. So this time when we were planning, we were like, all right, we're definitely having a theme. So that when Andy asks us, we have a theme ready to go.
Right. Yeah.
So we talked a lot about it, and the loose theme that we're proposing is kind of crowd pleasers, so big movies that a lot of people know but maybe haven't seen on the big screen, things that people love dearly, but also American cinema. We didn't do any foreign cinema this time. So we wanted to kind of show kind of the progress of American cinema through the years, through these big blockbusters and classics and camp classics and things like that.
Very cool. So it looks like you have pretty much all the decades covered. You've got 2 from the 60s, but otherwise it's a pretty broad spectrum.
Yeah, the 50s, I
stuff.
think, are the only thing that isn't represented, but you're close enough with 61 and 62 that we'll get
Yeah,
to.
but you guys went all the way back to 23, so
Sure,
we
yeah.
can't fault you for that.
It's true.
And
Yeah,
Baby
we
Jane
usually
it
choose-
doesn't really feel 60s.
It doesn't.
It feels like an old Hollywood
They did a
movie.
really good
Yeah.
job with that.
It's and it's in black and white.
Baby Jane's got a old Hollywood
Yeah.
feel, and then the Hustlers kind of moving into the new Hollywood direction.
Yeah.
Still black and white, but in a sort of conscious, arty sort of way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. All right, so we got a couple more films here to talk about. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is on October 26th at 3 p.m. And Saturday, November 9th at 3 p.m. By the way, these are all on Saturdays at 3 p.m.
Right.
So it's easy
Yeah.
to remember. Not every Saturday at 3 p.m., but
But all
most Saturdays. All of them are on Saturday at 3 p.m. The next one here, Saturday, November 9th, The Taking of Pelham 123. This is not the recent
No.
remake
It is
with
definitely
No.
not.
with
John Travolta.
Ethan Hawke.
There's not
Denzel
numbers.
Washington.
It's,
Washington.
John
Yeah.
Travolta.
1, 2, 3 is written out. That's how you know
Yes.
the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
So tell me all about it.
So this one's 1974 New York. This is a total New York movie. The filmmakers, well, Joseph Sargent's the director, but the producers and director got permission from the New York City Transit Authority, who denied them permission at first. But this was the end of Mayor John Lindsay's term, and he's the mayor who actually set up the first Office of Film Coordination in the city. So if you'll notice, like after 1966, there's just a ton of New York films. Of course, they don't make New York look that beautiful and glamorous. There's
Yeah.
like Mean Streets and Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
And at the end, he's almost out of office with The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Death Wish is kind of one of the last ones. Both of those films, he stepped in and he convinced the Transit Authority to work with the filmmakers because he wanted to make New York the city that's open for film. It's a big stage for filmmakers. So they did agree, although they asked for a couple $100,000, I think, in insurance fees because they were afraid that someone would try to recreate the film and hijack a train. So they filmed it on like an old. It was now they weren't using it anymore section of the subway, so they're actually filming underground. And for years, actually, still to this day, kind of for a while it was in the guidelines, but now it's sort of just out of fun, I guess. They won't have trains leave the Pelham station at 123.
Okay.
But but the film itself is just like a really tight thriller.
Yeah.
Really intense because it's these men who are all named, I think pink, green. They all have colored names, which is where, Tarantino gets it for Reservoir Dogs. And so they're all talking to each other, and there's this other sort of psychological drama going on between the killers, and you realize that, a couple are trying to get some money and a couple are really just completely insane. So you don't know what they're going to do, and it becomes this really intense scenario that Walter Matthau is in charge of overseeing and taking care of. So
Very cool.
it's great.
Now that you're talking about this movie, I realize I have not seen it. I have seen The Assault on...
Precinct 13.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen that one.
Is that the one with Matthew Broderick and a monkey?
Yes, actually. There's actually 2 movies. Right. 2 separate movies. One of them is about a police station that gets attacked. The other one is about Matthew Broderick with monkeys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mentioned all that mayor stuff. It's interesting to look at the portrayal of the New York City mayor, which is not positive after
Yeah.
he helped them out in this film.
Excellent.
Tough time in the city.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that one is, again, Saturday, November 9th at 3 p.m. The last one, now I can't remember, was it American in Paris City Lights last year, or was that a different... different
We did
series?
The Bad and the Beautiful, which was a Minnelli film, and then the American in Paris played later that day.
Okay, so
actually.
I saw them back to back.
Yeah.
Bad and the Beautiful I loved. American in Paris was But you guys have another musical on this list, which I'm very I like musicals in general. So Meet Me in St. Louis.
Well, this film is, I mean, it really is, talk about American crowd pleasers. I mean, it's just 1944, Technicolor. I mean, this film comes out at the height of a world war, and it's just about people being happy amongst all this, this excessive privilege. You know, there's just this very sort of well-to-do family living in the suburbs of St. Louis. And the film doesn't really have any plot. It's just about them living in St. Louis. But it's one of the most charming films. Certainly certainly Minnelli at his very best, and featuring a lot of really, really famous songs. I guess plot-wise, the one thing that does happen is that the father comes in sort of early in the film and says, "I've gotten a better job and we're moving to New York." You know. And this devastates the family. You know, and then the rest of the film is about them sort of, dealing with their sadness because they have to move away from St. Louis. Their perfect, idyllic life. And this is all. It all takes place in the year leading up to the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. And so it actually features lots of songs from the period, just real life songs from turn of the century. But then also a couple of original songs, the most famous of which, of course, is "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," performed by Judy Garland. And Judy Garland, by the way, nearly at the center of every single frame of every shot of the film, and just at the very height of her career with MGM. This was before booze and pills got the best of her. But after she had really sort of matured into a really sensitive and really brilliant performer. So just a beautiful film, just so charming, and I think a good way to sort of end, especially with the last whole sequence taking place at Christmas.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Right before the break.
Yeah, it's our
You guys
Christmas film.
can throw in a Christmas film. Very good. Start a new tradition. Because you guys might be closing down the cinema. There might be one more week of stuff before the Christmas break.
Yeah.
So that's a good time to do it.
We figured while everyone was going crazy with finals, they'd get a pick-me-up and
Exactly.
a smile.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just good timing.
It is a pick-me-up.
Excellent.
Feel-good movie.
All right. Well, any other thoughts about the City Lights series? That one's. Let me make sure I said that. Saturday, December 7th at 3 p.m. Anything else you guys want to say about the series?
I would just say, like our Facebook group, we'll be posting reminders of what's coming up, maybe some extras that you might want to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like the Facebook group. I'll say it again.
All right. Well, yeah. Yep. I'm excited. I'm excited. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us, Noelle, Jason, Danny. We appreciate you guys coming on. Are you guys sticking with it for the next semester? Do you guys have to? Is there a ceremony? Do you have to
an initiation,
drape the robe over someone else, or do you guys keep going for a while?
Oh well, I'm gonna keep.
Yeah, we haven't discussed it yet. This is getting very tense.
We actually had so many that we almost wanted to program. We kind of had the spring programmed already.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll do that spring, and that'll work for Valentine. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Maybe after that, we'll transfer. Maybe one personal stay in, a
We'll
personal
make it a
go out.
reality show.
Right. Search for the next City Lights programmer.
We'll make them do the top 5 like you did with Andy.
Right.
And then you'll just, look at them for really long, awkward moments of time, and we'll edit all that in. And,
Yeah.
It'll be good.
No problem.
We'll have to find out how they can do a podcast too before we let them.
That's true.
That's true. You'll have to bring them on here, and
Yep.
they'll have to audition as podcasters.
We can have America vote.
Yep.
I think it'll be great.
This is what we should do. All right. Well, let's get out of here before we give away all of our good ideas. So thank you guys very much for watching and listening. My name is Andy.
And I'm Jason.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.